Today I'm sharing my formula for slimming soups, which has helped me lose 30 pounds so far. And if I can do it in my early 60s, anybody can do it. Hi sweet friends, my name is Mary and welcome to Mary's Nest. This channel is all about living the simple life by cooking from scratch, making home remedies, and creating a cozy home with thrift store finds. So if you like the simple life, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the little notification bell below that'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Well, when you create a skinny soup, it actually has 4 parts to it. But before we go over that, why do I call it a skinny soup? Well, the reason is scientists did a study on the good bacteria in our guts, and they found that people who were slim and trim and in good health had a certain type of good bacteria that really flourished. And what it was called was, and I had to write it down because it's very hard to pronounce, it's called Akkermansia muciniphila, I think. But they abbreviated, lucky for us, called AKK. And they found that in slim and trim and healthy people, they had a lot of this AKK probiotic or good bacteria in their gut. But in people who suffered with obesity and type 2 diabetes, they were in the opposite situation. They had low levels of this AKK probiotic. And what the scientists went on to find further, which I'll put a link to this article in the description below so you can read all the details, but the bottom line was what the scientists found was when they took people who were obese or had type 2 diabetes or both and started feeding them a certain type of food or foods, that it increased this good bacteria in their gut. And not just good bacteria in general, but specifically by eating specific foods, it increased this certain specific bacteria, good bacteria, the AKK bacteria, and then it helped them lose weight almost effortlessly, which is great news if you struggle at all with losing weight like I have for a long time. So let's go over the 4 components of making these skinny soups. And the nice thing is, this isn't really a specific recipe. It's just a matter of including the 4 important components. And then you can really mix it up and make all different kinds of soups from this so you'll never get bored. And given that this is January now and we're all interested in being healthy and maybe some of us are trying to lose weight and it's also cold outside, this is a great time for soups. Now the first ingredient is bone broth, and you can either make your own. I'll link to my video where I show you how to make chicken bone broth. I also have another video for making beef bone broth, but you can also buy bone broth if you want to do that. But it's very reasonable to make your own, so definitely consider doing that. And personally, I think it's a little better than what you can buy at the store. But in any event, you want to start with 4 cups of bone broth. And that's 32 ounces or 4 cups. And the reason that we want to use bone broth is it contains amino acids that help nurture a nice environment to increase your levels of the good bacteria, the AKK bacteria specifically. Now the next thing you want to do is include what are called prebiotics, prebiotic vegetables. And I've got some onion and I've got some beet greens. They're in season right now, so this is a good thing to include because I really like to eat seasonally. And there's no specific amount that you need to definitely include, but you want to have at least 1 cup. So this is just 1 onion chopped, and this is the beet greens from 2 bunches of beets or 6 beets. In addition to the beet greens and the onions, prebiotic vegetables include pretty much all leafy greens, as well as onions, leeks, mushrooms, asparagus, things like that. And the reason why you want to include prebiotic vegetables is because prebiotics, meaning to come before, feed the probiotics, the good bacteria. And prebiotic vegetables specifically, they feed all the good bacteria, but specifically help that AKK bacteria grow and flourish. The next thing that you want to do are include some herbs or spices or both. And you want to have at least 2 teaspoons of herbs and spices. Now what I've got here is a teaspoon of coriander. I like coriander, so I've got a teaspoon of that. And then I've got a half a teaspoon of cumin and a half a teaspoon of turmeric. And the reason why you want to include herbs and spices is because they tamp down inflammation. And when you can calm the inflammation in your body and specifically in your gut, that also creates an environment to allow the good bacteria, the probiotics, to flourish. And specifically the AKK bacteria, the good bacteria, will really flourish when you tamp down all that inflammation that may be in your gut. And then the next thing, the final 4th element of making these skinny soups, is you want to include a super carb. And a super carb is a prebiotic carb, similar to your prebiotic vegetables. Super carbs will feed the good bacteria and help them flourish. And specifically, super carbs are great at feeding and helping the AKK bacteria, the good bacteria in your gut, to flourish. And the nice thing about super carbs is that they make these soups a little more hearty and they help suppress your appetite. And what exactly are super carbs? Well, it's kind of easy. They're beans, lentils, wheat berries, spelt berries, barley, brown rice, anything like that is basically a super carb, and it's a prebiotic, so it's going to help feed the good bacteria. And you're going to want 1 cup, and you're going to want to start with 1 cup dry. And today, here what I have are mung beans, and they are very easy to digest, and so I like to make soups with those, especially when we're trying to heal our guts and increase our good gut bacteria. If you decide to use beans, start with 1 cup dry. I highly recommend that you soak them overnight, and even if you want to go the extra step and sprout them, and I have a video on that which I'll link to, I highly recommend that, especially if you're in a phase where you're trying to heal your gut and you're trying to lose weight, because by sprouting the beans, you're going to make them very digestible. And you're going to start with 1 cup, and if you soak them and sprout them, probably in the end, you're going to have about 2 cups, but again, this is really just a very flexible formula. And then you'll add those cooked beans in. And I would recommend doing the same with wheat berries. Again, soak and sprout them, and then add them to your soup. And you can certainly soak and sprout lentils, but they sometimes can be a little easier to digest. So, I'm kind of always a little flexible on that. I'll often just add my lentils in dry right to my soup. But with my beans and my wheat berries, I really do, or spelt berries, whatever I'm using, I really do like to soak and sprout and cook them, and then add them in as a cooked product into my soup, because both of those require a little more attention, a little more long cooking times to make them very digestible. And so that's why I like to take those extra steps. And you can certainly soak and sprout brown rice as well. Rice is generally, again, one of those things that is a little easier to digest, and most people don't have too much trouble with it. So I generally don't soak and sprout my rice. I'll generally just go ahead and add it in raw, but leave that, I leave that up to you, what you decide, depending on what stage you feel your good gut bacteria may be in and how well you may be able to digest it. Well, that's the 4 elements of what go into making these skinny soups. Now I've got 3 other suggestions, which I'll explain at the end, that also help to boost these 4 elements. 3 additional ingredients that you can add that really kick us up a notch, as Lagasse would say. But I'll get to that as we get closer to the end. Right now I want to get cooking this soup. And what I do is, back here, what I've got are my basic ingredients that I pretty much start every soup with. In this case, I've I've got some clarified butter or ghee. That has the milk solids removed, and it's very nutritious, and I really like to use this as my base for starting my soup. But you can also use butter. You can use a combination of butter and olive oil, or other healthy cooking oils that you like, maybe coconut oil. All of them are good, but I like to go with the ghee, or you might know it as clarified butter. Then what I like to do is I have a tablespoon here. I like to add a tablespoon of sea salt. That's nice and rich in minerals. And then I've got a half a teaspoon, or I think a quarter teaspoon actually, a quarter teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. I like to add that for the flavor, but also black pepper helps your body to absorb some of the nutrients in spices, specifically things like turmeric, which we're using today in this particular skinny soup formulation. And then I also generally add about 1/8 of a teaspoon of red pepper flakes. That helps boost your metabolism, warm up your body, and get your metabolism going. And then just my mirepoix, I'll add my onion and my carrot and my celery. That's my base, basically my soup base. And a mirepoix is generally a 2-1-1 formula. So 2 parts onion to 1 part celery and 1 part carrots. And that makes for a great soup base. Well, now we'll get cooking everything, and I'll move you in closer. Well, I've got my ghee melting in my pot, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in my salt and my 2 peppers. Well, we've got those onions sauteing up for just about a minute or 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and add in my carrot and my celery. Just mix that in nicely. And then at the same time right now, I'm going to go in and add my other spices. And just stir that all around. Alrighty, so I just let that go another minute or 2 to mix in the spices with the carrots and the celery. And now I'm going to go ahead and add in my greens. Well, now I've let the greens saute with the other vegetables for another minute or 2, and now I'm going to add my bone broth. I added in my bone broth, and now I'm going to bring this up to a boil. Well, I've got this up to a boil, and now I'm going to go ahead and add in my mung beans. Now I'm going to cover this, and I'm going to turn it down to low, and I'm going to let it simmer for about 30 minutes. Now, I wanted to mention earlier when we were making the soup, I shared with you that there are 3 additional ingredients that you can add to any of these skinny soup combinations that you make that can help boost the slimming powers. One is Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, which is very high in probiotics, and it'll help to even further diversify all the good bacteria in your gut. And that's perfect for like topping on a minestrone. The second extra ingredient that can help boost slimming is sauerkraut, and the homemade type. And I'll link to that. I have a video where I show you how to make it homemade. But if you don't want to do that and you want to buy it, just make sure you buy the one that's in the refrigerator section, because homemade sauerkraut, or at least the ones that are refrigerated, are very rich also in probiotics to further add to the good bacteria in your gut to help you lose weight. And you can put a nice dollop of sauerkraut onto like a bean and ham soup or something like that. You don't want to cook it, just put a dollop on right before you eat it, and that adds a nice boost of probiotics. And the third extra little ingredient that you can add is a drizzle of yogurt. It'll not only make your soup creamy, and this type of soup would be perfect for some yogurt, it also adds more probiotics into your dish that eventually goes into your gut. And that will help diversify the different types of bacteria that you have in your gut, which only serve to boost your slimming effects of your skinny soup. And if you want to learn how to make your own bone broth to add to your skinny soups, be sure to click on this video over here where I show you how, and then subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you over there in my Texas Hill Country Kitchen. Love and God bless.